Hey guys, and welcome to Comfy Cozy Up. So today's video is going to be me taking you book shopping with me. So I have this gift card from Barnes and Noble. I have it for about a month now and I haven't had the time to go book shopping. So I'm going to be using this to get some classics because I'm going to be doing Victober. Meaning I'm not going to just read classic, but I'm going to try to read at least 3 Victorian novel for Victober, and there's prompts that is involved, so I'm trying to get books that will go into one of these prompts. That's the goal for today, but I have these books in my mind that I want to pick up. Hopefully Barnes and Noble have it in the Penguin Classic version. That's the one I want. It goes with everything that I have. Not so much the Barnes and Noble Classic version. I want the Penguin. So that's gonna be the trick. If I cannot get the books that I want in that version, I will probably hit up an independent bookstore that sells classic and hopefully they have it. But we're going to keep our finger crossed that I have some luck and I am going to use this baby up. And yeah, so come with me. so I'm back to share the books that I was able to get with the gift card. So October, Victober. So basically these books had to be in the release in the Victorian time, which is from 1837 to 1901. So I was able to get quite a few books with my gift card and have balance. So that's a good thing. There's 2 books I did have to get online because I couldn't find them in any store. And yeah, and everything else I was able. One book I did get at an independent bookstore that I show you a clip of. So let's get into it because there's a lot. So the prompts that they had for this reading challenge is: one is book has chronic illness or disability, a coming of age story, a short story. It said read a book and then watch a screen adaptation, and then there's poetry in long or short form. So I think I have books in these categories, but I'm not sure. So as the month goes on in October and I read the books, I would just kind of go through it and see, okay, which one it was in, because I really didn't. I'm going into some of these blind because I just love the author. So that's the, you know, the gist of it. Now there is a group read, so that was the first book I was like I needed to get, and that is The Mayor of Castlebridge, Thomas Hardy. So so this one I was happy that I was able to pick this up. Never read any book from Thomas Hardy, so I don't know if I'm gonna like his writing style or anything like that, but I'm gonna take a chance and just join in with this, and maybe with the group discussion and stuff I might, you know, have a different feeling for it. Who knows? But you know, I'm a classic girl. I love classic novel. I love that era. I find it fascinating, and I learn so much, and I find humor in some of the things that most people probably might not think it's funny, but for me, I enjoy it. If you see me talk about classic, you know. So I might, you know, find something interesting. Then I picked up all the Dickens they had that I haven't read. Now I've read 9 Dickens, and they're right here. Right here. And pretty much all the popular ones I've read. I did an entire video of ranking them my favorites that I've read in December, so I will leave that in the description so you can check it out to see which one you want to feel for. Dickens is my thing. I'm a Dickens girl. I don't know why. I just like his books and I find them quite entertaining, and I love the writing. But I've never read his first book, so that was one of the ones that I picked up that was there. I picked up 3 because that's only 3 books that they had that I haven't read that they had, and it is the Pickwick Paper. This is his first novel ever. It would be interesting to see how his writing had changed over time, because if you think of Bleak House, I mean, the writing in Bleak House was just absolutely gorgeous. I love the writing in that. That's one of them, out of all, that's the one that I felt like had the writing that I really liked. It wasn't my favorite. I still am a Nicholas Nickleby fanatic. I love that book still. That is my favorite Dickens. But if I'm thinking about writing, it's Bleak House. Now this one, I'm going to go into this with that idea, knowing that this was his first, and that, as you know, new authors, you typically, their first is never like the best, but sometimes they surprise us with the first is the best, but I very much doubt it was. But we'll see how this goes, so I'm going to read it. The next one is Barnaby Rudge, and this is, I'm not sure what this one is. I think this one is historical fiction because it took place in 1780. So this is supposed to be a historical fiction of that era. Yeah, no, I love historical fiction. So to read a classic that's already in the 1800s, published in the 1800s, and then have it be considered a historical fiction at that time, this will be interesting for me. Then there is Dombey and Son, and this one is a beast. I don't know if I'm going to touch this, but I think this was Books and Things put this in where it falls under, I forgot what she's considered this, maybe a coming of age or something like that. I don't remember what it falls under, but honestly, this is not going to get read in any readathon. Look at this beast. Absolutely not. This is one of those books that's just going to take me a while. So I might save this for next year. But we'll see. Then I picked up some George Eliot. Now, I've never read anything from George Eliot. So I just haven't. There is a popular, of course, Middlemarch. I think I've seen this book so many times. This is like one of those classics that people have read over and over and talked about. I've never read it. Not going to be reading this for this readathon because, again, I'm not in the, no. I want to read I want to try and get to 4 or 5 books. So this is not going to be on the list because this is chunky. Then there is Silas Marner. So this one I might be able to squeeze into my TBR, but we'll see. But this one is looking like a yes. Then I wanted to read some African American book that was published during that time, and it's not a lot. It's just not. So I found 2. One was the first book ever published by a African American, and that is Clotel. Oh God. Or The President's Daughter. Now this one is written by William Wells Brown. Now this is a fascinating author. He was a slave who first attempted to run away with his mother, and he got caught. They were sold and separated. The second attempt, he was able to get away and never was back in slavery. But he was a scholar. So I'm curious of his autobiography because I want to know how he became a scholar, being that he was a slave. And he wrote an article first, and it has traction, and he was in a position where he had to flee. So this is why this first book that he wrote was published in the UK, because there was a law that because they knew he was a slave that ran away, that they could go wherever he is, yank him up, and take him back to the slave owner. So he had that lifestyle where he had to be away. So this was published, but it came with controversy because the character is based on one of Thomas Jefferson's child that he had with Sally. And at the time, there was always that idea that it was true. We all know it is by DNA. We all know that in fact he had several kids with her. So this is why this book was kind of shoved for almost 100 years before it was picked up back and given the shine that it gets. It is very much, you can pick this up most bookstore, but I didn't get this on bookstore. I got it in online, but I'm pretty sure a few other bookstores might have had it because it is the first book published by an African American. So I'm gonna read it. I started reading like the forward stuff inside because, again, the author itself, life, it's just fascinating as it is, much less to dig into a storyline. And this storyline is probably going to irritate me somewhat because there's that part where it says, so it said Brown takes advantage of a scandalous and until recently unconfirmed rumor, and it said something about how the slave, she was sold and the slave person fell for her and basically conned her and then sold her off. So she had a rough life, but I'm here for this. This looks like it's going to be a fascinating read, especially if it's loosely based on a real person. Then I have the first book written by a black woman, a black African American woman. And I'm trying not to say the name because I don't know if it's going to get flagged. but art or sketches from the life of a free black. And this one is short. There's a lot of forward notes in the front and then in the back, but the story itself is really not that long. But I am going to read this. It's based on about a young girl and life during that time. I love the cover. This is the edition of this is 150 years. I think that's what it said. Yeah, this was published back in 1850. I can't tell. Sorry guys, I don't have my glasses on and these print are small. I'm not sure the year it was published, but whenever I read it, I'll talk more about that. Definitely going to read this one. It is small, short, so I can squeeze that in. So then we are in the poetry section. So poetry section, I got excited. I was determined, and I couldn't find anything in Barnes and Noble from the Victorian era. I was shocked. There was nothing. So I went to the other bookstore and I will only get one, and then the other one I had to pick up online. So I did get Mortal Beauty and God's Grace. This is Gerald Manley Hopkins. And this one is, I cracked it open so I could read at least one of the poems. And it's definitely giving me very much some spiritual stuff in here. But yeah, the first poem on this I'm looking at is Heaven Haven. Yeah, so I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this, and I think I'm going to be fascinated at the same time because of the spirituality part to some of this poems. But I'm going to read it. There are some other stuff in there that's just his writings. There is a section that says journal. I was like, oh. And you guys know I love journals. So there's letters and a lot of, it's just, I feel like I'm going to really like this in terms of digging into his thought process with this. And I don't know when this was published, but a lot of his poems in here, they pretty much, they all, well, he died in the 1800s. So it's all Victorian. So I'm looking at his life. They put it in here, but I like this. Again, I'm going to read some of this, not all, but you know. And the one that I really wanted to get a hold of is Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and it's Orally and Other Poems. I was hunting for this and it was nowhere. This is another one that I did have to get from online. And you know, she's known. She's known. And I didn't know her name, but I know some of the poems that she wrote. So I was kind of like, oh yeah, I need to add this to the collection because it's just and the thing about a lot of these poems, like this kind of book, I wouldn't read all of it just like that. This is something I will read over time. So during this Victober, I won't finish this, and I doubt I will finish this as well. These are things that I would just read a lot of poems, and I might share some of my favorites and how I feel, or some of those that are confusing, because some of these poems I'm sure are a little bit more tougher to crack of the interpretation. But then I've learned from being somebody that likes poetry and sometimes they being right, that the intention of poetry sometimes have different interpretation to who reads it and what did they get from it. So you know, you can have an argument about some poetry sometimes that is, and the audience are going to have different views, and that's the beauty of poetry. How does it make you feel when you think of the words? Not so much what the intention of the author is per se. So I'm going to get into this. And then I have the complete poems of Emily Dickinson. Now, all of her poems in here are not Victorian time. Some are after 1901, but she has a lot in here from the 1850s to again till she passed away think. But so I'm gonna read the ones that are Victorian time. So those are the ones that I'm going to focus on. I have read quite a few so far in here because I've been slowly going through it. A lot of her poems are a bit dark, a bit gloomy, and life takes on life and stuff. And so sometimes I have to be in the mood because I tend to like passionate love kind of poems. That's why I kind of like Lansing Hughes has so much in his. I have his entire collection of his poem. Claude McKay, and who are not from the Victorian. Those are not from the Victorian eras, but I do like them. I do have, I think I have one more classic that is I think from the Victorian era. Allen Poe. I have Poe. I can't even get his name right. That I think he does, but I'm not sure. Let me not say that because I'm not sure what era that was, but I do know that's a classic that I love and I have. So that is it for the books that I picked up. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I have one book that is not Victorian at all, but I just want it because I'm going to read it sometime by the end of the year, and that is A Room with a View, and this is E.M. Foster. I read this year Howard's End, and so I definitely wanted to read this one because I actually watched a documentary on him. I find him it's another author that I find very fascinating, and I realized after I knew I wanted to read more of his work, so I saw this and I picked it up. So this is not a Victorian classic, it is a modern classic, but I'm going to definitely read this before the year ends, and I am so excited about this. Yeah, this was published literally right after the era, which is 1908. So this didn't make the cut as far as a Victorian novel. But that's okay. It's still going to get read, and I'll talk about this sometime this year. So these are the books that I picked up, and I'm going to dig in. Definitely what I'll say is I'm going to read the two African American one Dickens, the Thomas Hardy, and one George Eliot. Yeah, that's the goal. So that will be at least five. I'm not going to count the poetry books, but in the novel, the goal is to get at least 5. So wish me luck, guys. Wish me luck. I think another thing I'm going to do in between some of the classic, I'm going to probably read some romance. I like reading short romance, like novellas, in between my classics, just to lighten the moods a little bit, because it depends on how dark the classics are. So I'll probably do that. So there will be other books in the mix of all of these for October. So hey guys, bye guys, I'm excited. And let me know if you guys are planning on reading anything for Victober. That would be interesting to see what other people are reading, because I am enjoying watching these videos of people TBR, because there's books I've never heard of, authors that I've never heard of, and I want to grow and keep continuing growing my classic collection. I have tons of classics that I've read in the last like 5 years, and my collection keep growing, and I love the experience that I'm having. So let me know what are you guys reading, and I will definitely check out your video. So alright guys, see you in the next one.